Banks. I'm the assistant superintendent, and I have the privilege of introducing our architects this evening who are going to review our middle school projects, highlight some of the minor changes that have been made, and certainly answer any questions that you have. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Tony Shore.
Great. Thanks, Randy. Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you for stopping by this evening. I want to ask one quick question. How many people, is this your first time at a presentation about the school projects that we presented? Great, okay, just wanted to get a sense of that. It was interesting when it was like -5, I think we had 100 people in the room. When it's 70 degrees, we only have about 10, but thank you. I think we really appreciate you coming. We really do want your input. I say this all the time, you know, when we get in these community meetings, this school district has been very good at keeping community involvement, taking the responses. We've tried to take most of those, look at those, and incorporate them in if we can. And so we do appreciate the comments we've gotten so far from the entire district on all 4 of the buildings that we've been working on. So I'd like to make a couple introductions real quick. You know, Mike Dingeldine from CDA, they're our associate architects. Mike's going to do the majority of the presentation. And then I've got a couple of our architects here. This is Paul Miller. He's actually the architect for this project, doing the documents for Perry Phoenix. And then Nathan Gamala is working on McCord and Kilbourne, those 2 projects for us. And our other architect, Brian, I don't think he's here, he's helping on the Worthingway project. So these 2 gentlemen are here. Thanks for coming. And so what I'm briefly going to talk about is kind of where we are. We've shown this chart numerous times, and there's multiple phases in doing a project. In design, we have our 4 phases of program, schematic design, design development, and construction documents. And you can see by the colors and the line that we have drawn, the Worthingway Middle School is very close to finishing construction documents. We are actually going to be starting some early site work over there in the next 3 weeks. So it's the first one in the run. As you see, we phased and had to phase how we do our work, and the construction manager that's been hired, which is Russilli, and how they help us through the design process and pre-construction. So we've staged this exactly how we see it on the screen. So Perry Phoenix is second in the line of our progression of the process of design. Once again, you see kind of where that line is. We are still finishing construction documents. What's happening on those first 2 schools here and at Worthingway, we're actually starting construction before we actually finish all the documents. That's allowing the contractor to get started so we can meet the completion date in fall of 21 when all 4 of these need to be done. So they're starting to do phases. So we're doing our documents in phases to allow them to get pricing, to do portions as we go along, to keep the schedules and maintain that completion date. So Perry Phoenix, we're going to talk a little more about Perry Phoenix because it's coming up here in the next, I'd say, month or so before they start here. They're going to start the first phase here. Mike's going to talk about the phases, but we are looking again for the CMR to be starting sometime November, early December to start moving some dirt around. So it's exciting after all this time. So you can see again on Kilbourne, we are just finishing our design development. We're working through reconciliation with the contractor on pricing right now. And we're in the design development phase of McCord. And again, we're working on that phase. So one of the things I always mention at these meetings, everything you see up here, we're still in design. We're not in the construction yet. So there are still going to be tweaks. There's still going to be changes. We are still working with budgets and working things out. So everything you see is a moving target still, but we're getting closer and closer and closer every time we meet with you guys. So if you see some things that are a little different, we have made changes since you've all been here. I was anxious to see that a lot of you have been here before. So as Mike goes through that, you'll see some of these changes. And please, during the presentation, don't hesitate to ask questions as Mike goes along. He loves interruptions, right? He'd prefer that, and so please ask as he goes along. So let me turn it over to Mike.
Okay, thanks, Tony. And the tag team on Tony, as he described and this schedule sort of implies, we have a lot done at Worthingway. We have a lot figured out. We have engineering, lighting, mechanical systems, site, tree, landscaping plans, parking plans, storm detention and water control plans, all about finished, and we're just getting to that point at Kilbourne and McCord, which are smaller projects, but they're later. So I'm going to present the projects kind of in reverse order, although I'm going to save Perry Phoenix for last since we're here tonight and talking about that. So our first project is McCord. It's a project that needs to grow by more than 100 students, and so we are looking for ways to address the additional capacity that's needed. but also to address some of the limitations in core space that would come with that additional capacity. It's an interesting building. It has a unique sort of design flair with the stair-stepped edges and sort of the modern look. In terms of the site, we have a pretty fixed condition here in terms of traffic flow and how it works with lined up intersections. We can't really get into changing those without some major headaches. We have some really nice natural areas that push up against the back corner here. And then we have some open grass area that is kind of where we have some space to do some additions without getting into infrastructure. And in the middle of this presentation, it may seem the wrong place to do it. I'm going to talk about some of the priorities that we took on all the projects, but I think it's really important to talk about that for the bigger projects. So as we look at this project, the one thing we are doing at each project is we are suggesting sort of site improvements. Even though this is about building capacity and the bond issue is about building addition and additional classrooms, we're also thinking through, either now or in some of the cases of these two smaller projects, long-term, how do we get some more capacity in terms of buses and parents and cars and separation of those. And this is one of the ideas that we've floated, and we're having Russilli work with us in terms of figuring it out, and our engineers are looking at it. But having buses do a 30-degree angle pull-off where they can all peel away at any time individually, but they can arrive at different times and still be in the same slot every day where students know where to find their bus. So this is just an idea for improved site circulation at McCord. Our first plan we built around the needs of the core spaces. You see some red areas where we're targeting some strategic improvements, and we did an addition that followed that same scheme. So we created an addition with 11 new classrooms and a hallway here, and we stair-stepped the outside walls to sort of build off the theme of the building and keep with it. But as we're getting into design development on McCord, we're looking at ways to meet budget goals. And so we are thinking, well, and then one of the things that the School Facilities Commission partnership makes us do is programmatically be compliant with the Ohio School Design Manual. And so we've changed the shape of the classrooms and the shape of the hallway, and again, we're still just sort of studying this because we're just getting to the end of design development. But we have the exact programmatic approach that we show with this scheme as well. And so just to highlight, we're taking the music room and stage and the existing cafeteria, making it much larger. We're expanding music into existing and new space. We're creating a new secure entrance for office where people come in directly in to meet a professional greeter. We're adding some small group rooms, and we're looking at reusing science labs because we're going to create new science labs in the new addition because these science labs are a bit awkward in terms of how they function with casework and equipment. So if you look at the new kind of idea, everything is still there. We still are doing 5 new science labs, 6 new classrooms, some new music, and some of the addition. We're still creating that new reception office area here, and we're doing some renovations to the media center. So, and we're capturing these existing science labs as special ed rooms and new classrooms. So everything's getting repurposed and reused. We're netting about 12 or 13 new classrooms at McCord, which is great. That's going to accomplish that increase in number of students that we're looking to a 675 capacity site. There's a little bit closer view of it. And again, one of the things we like about the addition and the size is it allows us to sort of home run the corridor and the connections to the building so that people in this end of the building don't have to go back to the middle and out to another peninsula and be separated. The idea that we can connect creates a nice flow of traffic, and it also creates a courtyard that we're pretty excited about. I was worried about it at first, but students and staff said that will make some great opportunities for outdoor education, and we're letting them think through that and come up with some ideas for how we might use that courtyard. Here's the existing cafeteria and music room, and there's a permanent or a folding wall that opens here for performances on the stage. We saw this as kind of awkward. We needed all this space, but how do we convert it to something where you don't have to go outside in the hall and then back up to overcome that level of steps? We looked at the cost and the complexity of maybe taking out that construction. And where we are today, in again a budget-conscious arrangement, is we're going to leave the steps, but we're going to internally connect the ramp. We're going to reduce some of the construction in the space, and we're going to create a very large media center, a little larger than we need for just the cafeteria, but we're going to call this more like a student commons than just student dining. We want to make it a space that has different kind of seating and different kind of opportunities for group gathering and for self-directed learning and small group learning, and a space that is going to be pretty large. So we're looking at about 6,000 square feet of total student common space, where we used to have 2,800 square feet. So it's really a huge improvement, more than double the cafeteria common space that we have currently. And there's a sort of an aerial view of the massing of the addition. You can see, you know, the leftover space that's created is all contained. It can be supervised, and it can be outdoor learning area that's safe and controlled by the building. So again, we're excited about how that is going to play out as we go forward. So next school, Kilbourne. Very tight site, very beautiful building, very sacrosanct front yard that isn't a place where we can push out additions. As we actually look at the site and every parking space as really valuable, and every direction of turning radiuses and parking and pulling up, and having a front door that isn't an operational front door, but keeping the sort of the beauty of the school and its relationship to the road. We focused on a very little bit of site that doesn't have parking spaces and doesn't have existing construction on it, that we could actually create the kind of relationship to a front door and to an operational safety approach to this building that is a little different without, you know, changing what's beautiful about this building. So our approach here is small and focused. We're going to take the old office space that comes off in front here, and again, if you park back here, you have to walk all the way around the building to get in to visit the front office. We're going to recapture that, which what we think was the original use of that space, into 2 classrooms. And then we're going to create a much larger student commons cafeteria. Again, that theme you're going to hear about all 4 buildings. We're creating a new administrative office area, and we're creating another secure entry. That's another thing you're going to hear about all 4 buildings. You come into a lobby, you are buzzed into an office directly, and then you are released into the building. There's no wandering hallways to find offices. There's the requisite number of offices, clinic, support space in the administrative area that doesn't exist today in this location. This will become a new sort of operational front door. This will remain the ceremonial and sort of architectural front door. The cafeteria, again, almost doubles in size, one of the limitations of Kilbourne.
Is that the blue area, is that like the parking lot side now?
Yeah, well, this is the Hartford Street side, and the parking lot's up here.
Oh,
So
okay.
we're not pushing north, but this column line is the current outside wall of the cafeteria. We're going to push it out, create new offices and bigger cafeteria along Hartford Street. And I'll show you some images.
No, that area down there was Max McCord's office.
Was it really? That's good to know, see? That's something I didn't know till tonight. So that's kind of the approach. And then, well, here's a little bit larger view of it. You can see we're going to be up at around 3,500 square feet for the cafeteria. We're going to have the requisite sort of support for student services and administrative services. And we're going to have an accessible entrance and a secure entrance at the main reception. And then the old office area will become 2 classrooms. And then upstairs, and we weren't sure we were going to do this, but capturing some additional teaching stations has been what this whole program has been about. We can match the exact addition footprint with a 2-story addition, which is very economical, and we can create 3 more full-size classrooms, a teacher's workroom, some additional bathrooms up here, and a way to circulate that allows us to meet the exit and egress and life safety codes. So it's really economical additional space. It doesn't add 1 square foot to the footprint. It doesn't take out 1 parking space from the building, and it allows us to maximize, in my opinion, the long-term future of Kilbourne Middle School. It has been done a few times. We filled in the courtyard with a media center. You've done some additions, some small additions, but this building, the way it sits on the site, isn't going to grow anymore, so we wanted to take this last opportunity and make it the best opportunity. And so upstairs you'll see 3 new classrooms, pretty large, new teacher prep rooms, some itinerant offices, and some new single-use restrooms. And that fits perfectly with the plan for the capacity of this building. And so we worried a little about the 2-story addition, and we realized most of the building is 2-story. The gym, which is right adjacent to Hartford, is 2-story, and so we're feeling like that's pretty good. And as we got into the looking of the front of the building and the scale, and we have to go to the design review board for Worthington for this, then looking at the side and seeing that we wanted something that poked a little higher than the adjacent part of the gym or the 2-story wing that we're adding, which will become, again, our new operational front door. We wanted it to feel important. We wanted it to feel like a primary entrance, and we didn't want to take away from the building's look and feel from the street. So we felt like we found the middle point that works very well with that. So as you can see, we've got to get up to a level which will have some ramping and some stairs to do. We'll create a little bit of importance here. And the 2-story addition just feels a little bit better as it fits from the idea of the 1-story cafeteria that sits there today. So we're not really going to change much about the footprint and much about the scale of the building, and we definitely don't feel like we're doing any damage to what's most important about the scale and the front of the building to the street.
How many feet will that come out on?
It comes out about 15 feet, and if I go back to that site plan, you can see there's some gardens, some landscaping there now. We're going to build out over that. We're going to come out about halfway in this section of sidewalk, just about to the back of that tree planting box is where we'll build to. So we're taking, like I said, advantage of this very small place on this site that doesn't have parking or building on it, without getting into the, obviously, into the front yard. Good question. Okay, Worthingway. Again, this one's the furthest along. It had all of the same sort of challenges, and I thought maybe just going over this quickly when I look at the two big buildings, these are the things that were emerged from our feedback from the district. These aren't things that we invented. These aren't things that we brought to the table. These are the things the district, the staff, the school board said were important to us. We want to accommodate teaching and learning into the 21st century for middle school. We want very sustainable buildings. We're going after, on the two large projects, the LEED certification, which is required by the commission in our partnership. But that's basically a grade, a score. What we're really after is incredibly sustainable buildings, ones that operate more inexpensively, ones that year to year remain viable and maintainable. We want sustainability to be a process, not just a credential like a LEED plat. So we do think we're going to get LEED silver by minimum requirement and LEED gold by our goal right now, but we are focusing on great sustainability. We're thinking about the best kind of lighting, the best kind of mechanical systems, the best kind of insulation, the best kind of orientation for daylight and windows. All those things are part of these projects.
Solar is not part of it though.
Solar energy, which is turning solar sun into electrical energy, is not, because the storage of that is still really expensive. I think it's coming, and we are calling all these projects solar ready, because with the commission's partnership, they say, I think solar's coming someday. We want you to be ready to attack it once it does. And so it's not going to be something that's part of this project, but it certainly can be part of the future. And all four of these buildings will be solar ready. We ran into these questions about assets. How much of a building do we keep? How much of a building do we replace? What do we do with site assets? How much of the underground drainage do we keep? We got into the issue of the site footprint at Worthingway Middle School, and we realized the best place to build in addition to this building is a brand new, beautifully developed track, field, underground drainage, all those systems. And so we really fought hard to make sure that we continued to hear from everybody, including the school board, that we wanted to retain asset value to the greatest degree possible. We wanted to keep everything here, not tear down most of it and start over. We also wanted to improve site traffic safety and building life safety at both places. And the most important thing that we forget about is we aren't moving out of any of these buildings. We're taking on all these additions and all these projects as operating schools. And so we call those swing sites. We're going to be moving kids around a little bit, but we're going to be keeping them essentially in school every day on the sites that they currently are on. And we aren't changing that. There's a cost to do that, but there's also a much greater cost to move kids off-site and find temporary space. So we're hopeful that the least interruption and the least impact on education is to keep kids in their current buildings and be very strategic about how we move them around to allow for the construction of the new school. And also allow for the end product not to be a compromise based on how we had to swing kids. So those were all things that I think came up that you'll see are part of why we are the way we are. There's questions, I'll keep looking up. So here's Worthingway as it looks. It is about 80% retained existing school and about 48,000, 50,000 square feet of new school. Again, challenges were not to get into the assets that were most valuable and to provide the assets that are missing, like a place to put the buses in, the same kind of arrangement we talked about at McCord. And the idea of creating a new front door, creating a secure building, creating a building that has daylight strategies, north and south orientations, minimizing the footprint so we can retain impervious areas that allow us to manage stormwater. All those things became the challenge of fitting on what's a rather tight site. If the School Facilities Commission were picking a brand new greenfield site for a middle school this size, it'd be 25 acres. We're sitting here on 5 acres. And so we know we have a suburban, we have a neighborhood site. It comes with some challenges, and we've been thinking through how those go. So from the back, you can see our new addition of classrooms is 2-story. That's not ideal because this building was a low-slung, 1-story sort of modern, mid-century modern building, but it allows us to retain footprint. It allows us to keep the building compact. It allows us to put in additional parking, additional bus circulation traffic, And something very important, the fire department wanted something that's never existed at this school, a fire access lane that can serve the building from both sides, front and back. And so those are things that became part of the working with City of Worthington to make sure we accomplished. We're taking about half of the classroom wing off. We're not doing that because we don't want it. We're doing it because it's the least valuable, and it creates some very valuable opportunities for site redevelopment. And so that's how we looked at it in terms of balancing, retaining the asset and getting the site assets that we needed. We have a new sort of wider circulation area with parking that's never again existed on the site. Parking for this school exists in the neighborhood, on the neighborhood streets. If you ever go to a game or an event there, you see that in first person. We've also created the center section where the parking lot is into a pervious pavement, where we will actually have the storm water penetrate the pavement into underground detention. And that's, again, really important for this particular site. We're looking for a new entrance. We're looking for more transparency, more daylight, more visibility, and some architectural importance that's going to come at the new north center of this building. And we're looking at, daylighting, orientation, educational spaces, and things like this. This is representative of the media center as you wrap around the building. Sorry about that. And a little further view from the street. So this is sort of the front right view of the building. You can see the two-story space is pushed back from the street. It doesn't get much higher than the gym is currently. I know there's some concern in the neighborhood about the scale of a two-story building, but again, as you're trying to manage the water pervious area and the footprint and keeping as much green space and adding some parking and bus space, it became a balancing act, and this is where we've ended up. This is the interior of the media center, just looking at the different areas that you can break down into small groups and large groups. Again, that student commons, that cafeteria space, we wanted transparency, we wanted daylight, we wanted it a little bit larger than you would need just for dining, so we're going to mix up the kind of furniture and equipment that occurs in these spaces, and there'll be high chairs, low chairs, benches, some soft seating, all those kinds of things that make up these student commons and what they look like. Here's the front entrance to the school. Again, secure entrance through the office first. Classrooms will have more daylight. It'll be daylight harvested from north and south. We'll have new technology that we've talked about as district priorities. We'll have a little bit different look and feel. We'll have some small group areas where you break out into small groups. And again, we have those large student commons, and we have traditional classrooms making up our story here. This is the phasing plan for the school. I'm going to spend some time on the Perry phasing plan tonight. Just want to quickly kind of review the Worthingway phasing plan. We're going to build the new blue construction. That's the new footprint of the building. This is the existing music locker rooms and gymnasium, the existing cafeterias in that red area, and this is the existing classroom wing. We're going to build the blue first, and we're going to stay out of the school altogether in the first year. It will operate as it operates this year without much of an internal impact. And once the blue is built, we're going to use it. We're going to use it to move students into space so we can renovate the leftover space. So our first year, this is the existing footprint, we're going to build the blue addition to the school. We're going to leave most of the existing building, like I said, untouched except for summers and maybe even a night session here or there where we have to connect some new electric. Once that addition is finished, we'll move most of the school into that left side. We will renovate this part of the classroom wing, and we'll demolish this part of the classroom wing. That's the last piece, because that's where our new bus drive goes, and that's how we create all the additional parking by putting buses down at this part of the site. As you can see, most of our important green space, most of our important assets are retained. We are losing some trees with the additions, but we are putting back as many, in fact, way more trees than we're taking out, just based on our goals in terms of our lead points and our landscaping plan. There's kind of an overall view. Okay, our last one. Perry Phoenix. We're just a few weeks behind Worthingway in this project. It is very similar in so many ways. It has some of the similar challenges. The existing amount of space we're retaining is about the same. The amount of addition we're creating on the building is about the same. This building is interesting in that it hasn't been used as a fully occupied school for the last several years because it's only housed the Phoenix program. That actually makes it a little easier for us because we can handle that number of kids in this sort of phasing mode much easier. So here's the school. It's really pretty large. And the interesting part of it is a sort of traditional middle school, thinking of the Phoenix or thinking of the Perry program. It is a unique district-only program in terms of the Phoenix program, and then it houses, in terms of the building shell, not in terms of anything else, it houses the Worthington Academy and the Rockbridge Academy. So we really have 4 programs in this building that are going to exist and coexist here. We're working very hard on making the Perry and the Phoenix programs work together and share some very important, very cool space. We are not getting into any sharing in terms of the 2 academies, and in fact, because of some new doorways and some new exitings, we're going to be able to make these secure and separate parts of the buildings. They will have locked doors, but they will not be used except for emergencies. So we will have those 2 programs completely physically separated from the operations of the Phoenix and the Perry program. So here's our existing site. A little bigger, a little more loose space than we have at Worthingway, but some of the same challenges. We need a little more parking and traffic flow in the front. We're going to need a little bit more total parking than we have in the back. We have some shared resources that come from the school-owned property and the park, and so we can take advantage of that. We don't want to tear that up. It's valuable assets. We want to work with it. So we're trying to keep the additions on the north and the south. That gives us a lot of opportunity to organize the building the way we want, but it also allows us to keep most of the assets. And in fact, this parking lot just gets extended in a very simple way. So we're not adding driveway length, we're not adding distance, we're not adding lots of paving that we don't need. So most of the green space on the site remains. Again, the footprint of the new building is really the only place where much has changed. We're creating a whole new entrance at the center of the building out near the sidewalk. We're creating an all-new office administrative area and student services area. And the reason for that is where it currently exists in the building is in the center core of the building, and it's not where you want it. If you want a secure office where you come in and you're buzzed in to meet a receptionist, you got to do that at the edge of the building. And currently, you have to walk in, as you know, and go into the office on the honor system. And so we're changing that. But what results from that is that core space, which kind of sits in the middle of this part of the building, gets blown open. It becomes our new student commons. It's in the perfect place to serve the entire building. When I say the entire building, the Phoenix and the Perry students. Our new media center actually connects us to outside daylight, and the height of this section of the building is just a little bit higher, and it allows us to access some daylight that way as well. So the core of the building now becomes this very mixed student commons area that does include dining services, but it also includes study services, study halls, small group work, individual work. You can see the furniture isn't all consistent. It's not all one kind of thing. These are more focused on dining tables, but these are more on, this whole section is more on group work. And as you transition into the media center, it gets the most private and the most quiet. And so we have this sort of whole range of things that we're trying to do in the center of this building, and we're trying to think about how 2 different programs are going to use it for lunch and use it for study and use it for interaction, and we think that's a good thing, and we're excited about it. The current kitchen sits in this room right here. If you can believe it. This is what the kitchen is supposed to be for a school this size. So we're taking the old cafeteria and we're turning it into the full-size kitchen. And then the Phoenix program is a little different. We've talked a lot to the Phoenix teachers. We're going to group them into pods of 4 classrooms. Those can be age-level classrooms, or those can be multi-age, multi-grade classrooms. But there'll be 3 teams of 4. But what we've really learned about the school is that the idea of these places where they can break out, they call it the family room in this building currently, it's in the front of the building, is a very interesting space that lots of cool things happen in. And they very much wanted to retain that idea and in fact actually extend it. And so we've actually created the old media center into this giant multi-use studio area. So this will be a breakout space that's dedicated just to the Phoenix program, and it will support those 12 classrooms in pods of 4. And so we're kind of excited about that. It's a very different opportunity. It's a very different delivery system. It's a very big investment in space to a very unique program. And it's very much driven by the teachers and the staff here today who do it. And they're very excited about what's going to come of that kind of space and that kind of use.
Can we go back to the cafeteria?
Yes.
So you mentioned that they're making it larger. Are they adding like dishwashers so that there's the opportunity for them to use metal utensils rather than everything that's
all
disposable?
That. It'll be a full-service kitchen, full-service dish room, full-service dry goods storage, walk-in freezer, walk-in cooler. None of that exists today because it's so small. And it hasn't been a huge deal because it's only been serving 120 kids. But as we get into this 800-plus school, this is going to be a whole different way of thinking. This will be one of the largest cafeterias in the district, more closely resembling the high schools. then.
And will McCord and the other middle schools kind of have similar?
They have existing cafeterias that are pretty good size. They're getting a little bit different equipment, and we're growing the one at Worthingway because it's the next largest school change in terms of size. But they are all getting outfitted and updated at all 4 schools. But this one is a wholesale brand new startup. Good stuff. And then the Perry wing, which is the south wing of the building, it's going to be more traditional. It's going to be a lot more like Worthingway. It's going to have the same kind of classrooms, the same science labs, the support space, the prep space, the special education, the intervention space. All those things are pretty much following Worthingway. And again, we're pretty much driven by district schools. These are some views. We're trying to stay with the architectural intent because obviously we don't have the money to reskin or rechange the architecture, but a lot of the exterior skin gets new architecture. Again, we'll follow some of the cues of the existing building, but lots more windows, lots more transparency, lots more daylight. You can see the high sections of the roof over the student commons and the high section of the roof over the Perry family or the Phoenix family rooms. Those are existing pop-ups in the building. We're not building any new construction there, but we're adding some transparency there to get some daylight into the building. The front of the school will feel much more intimate, much more connected. This is our new media center with lots of north light connecting to an outside space. This is the back where we'll replace some of the outdoor play area, but 2-story wing of the Perry area. Again, very classic, but tucked in behind the building, will not seem like 2 stories from the street. Very cool space. It's actually created in the existing courtyard, but with the new addition of Perry and the old Phoenix wing, we're going to have a kind of a shared outdoor courtyard that we can do outdoor learning in. Again, much like McCord and much like already exists at Worthingway. And then an entrance that follows a bit of the cues from Worthingway, and it's going to have a high, clear story, nice daylight, very important, clear entrance. Obviously the entrance that you can get buzzed into the building. All the other entrances will be staff only. This is a little video. It shows a few more things than these stills, so I'm going to play it. I think, yes I am. See how the 2-story volume in back really has very little impact on the 1-story scale in the front. A new entrance for the Worthington Academy, something I think gets all the traffic out of the existing school, which was a concern. A new mechanical yard for more air conditioning, heating, kitchen deliveries. A new entrance for the Perry wing, the 2-story wing across the back. Lots of daylight, again, all oriented north and south for daylight harvesting. The existing Phoenix wing, the new Perry wing, this is that courtyard space that's created between the 2 wings. And again, right outside of this glass in this hallway. So this is something this building has currently, but has never been part of the aesthetic or the volume of the building. This is that space that used to contain 4 hallways in the office, and now it's going to be just a wide open space that's going to become part of the student commons. Again, furniture is here as a placeholder. We don't know what it's going to be yet, but we're going to work very carefully on mixing it up so that it has different kind of opportunities. But all this daylight is potentially there already. It is our hope and the Phoenix staff's hope that these 2 schools do a lot of collaboration, that they aren't kept apart, that they share these really incredibly large shared facilities, because the 2 schools together nurture more of those kind of shared core facilities. This is the family room area of the Phoenix building. This would be Phoenix only space here.
So in the others, you had an emphasis on pull-through bus lanes. I know that flow here can be
Yes.
challenging now. I don't see any solution.
Well, we've thought about it, and because we have so much more additional sort of linear space, let me get back to the site plan.
If you're gonna bring it up later, that's fine.
No, it's great. It's a great question. We're hoping to widen this a little. Again, this is part of that sort of long-term site improvement strategy, but it allows for a lot of buses, and because there's so much length here, they don't have to be the angle, they can actually be linear. The other opportunity is they can all be back here in the back of the building if we want to put the emphasis on parent drop-off and pick-off at the front. We've got two long distance possibilities for bus queuing and for parent queuing, and we're not sure with a main entrance here and a main entrance here how that might work. I think that's really up to Sean and the future administrators of the building to say this is what we see as the best. If we think that we want to actually do the angled parking, it would just mean taking a little more of the front yard space out, and I don't think that's a terrible thing. It's just a question of what's the most economical thing.
Well, you said 800 is what the new capacity will be.
860,
I
240
watched the 6
Phoenix.
buses now.
Yeah, 240 Phoenix, right.
160 kids that are
Right,
there.
and they have to all share the front, and parents do, and the drop-off times and pickup times, pretty much stack on each other, and it's one place. We're hoping that we can separate for sure. How they separate, whether this is cars and this is buses or vice versa, is still, I think, in the thinking phase.
Well, doesn't Phoenix have the extended days of the time?
We're hoping that, yeah, Phoenix and Perry can actually, not actually stack, that there's be some overlaps where they would leave early and arrive early, and Perry would come a little later and leave a little later. So that'll help us even make this easier.
Did you say 240 for Phoenix?
240, when you take, is that a number, guys?
A third
You take
class,
that
yeah.
sixth grade, it's now 80 kids times 3. So yeah, 240, I did okay in that.
Will the 2 different schools enter at the 2 different entrances?
That's a possibility, but not a necessity. I'm actually not encouraging that. I'm saying, get back to the big plan. This would be that front entrance, and it would be intended for kids who wanted to turn right and go into the Phoenix classroom wing, which is a little bit more separated, or go straight and go into the Perry classroom wing. But this gym, this music, this media center, this modular technology lab, this vocal music, these 2 art rooms, this student commons, that's all for both programs. So that I want them to share it. I want them to figure out how to learn from each other if that's possible. I don't want to get in the way of that, I guess, is what I'm saying. I want to make the building sort of step back and let the programs decide, they've got some sort of unique areas that are their academic wing, but they have lots of core space, and more than any other middle school because they're both here and they're both sharing. So they have 2 gyms, they have 2 art rooms, they have 3 music rooms, they have this student commons that's the largest of the 4 buildings. They have all these things that are really special because there's 2 programs here.
So it would seem to me that if Perry's already in session, and all of a sudden you're gonna bring another 600 kids through that front door, that'd be pretty disruptive.
Well, we're actually, this means this traffic going this way or this traffic turning this way, it really wouldn't be too disruptive to the academic wings. There would be noise in that commons area as traffic comes through, but I don't think Perry traffic coming to here or Phoenix traffic coming to here at different times of the day will interrupt the academic process.
All right, so then I'm gonna ask, you mentioned the possibility of the administration making the backside an entrance.
Right, we've
Looking
created
at that, the volume
a
of
step.
that compared
Correct.
to the
And if
front.
this is the bus drive in the end, I imagine all the Perry kids coming off buses in this door. I just imagine that. I don't make that a requirement, but I imagine that's what would be the option that the district could consider.
I have a question about the
Mhm.
traffic light. Are they going to do anything with the traffic light?
Not to my knowledge, both of them rate the additional sort of traffic load, and very few schools have, dual entrances like this one does.
Right now we don't have a left turn.
That might be something to talk about. It's just timing, length, and maybe a left turn light that maybe doesn't exist now. That's a good point, yeah.
Are there 2 gyms there?
Yes. This gym was too small to accommodate the 860 students. We thought we were going to expand it, and we started talking with the staff, and we started talking with the different programs, and they thought an auxiliary gym, which is about the size of an elementary gym, because this is a decent gym. It just wasn't quite as big as the school facilities standard was. So we were able to create 2 gyms, and in fact, I had the other schools ask me, can we do that too? But they didn't have enough students to create that additional gym, but this school did. So they have an elementary auxiliary gym, and they have a full-size middle school gym, and between the 2, they can sort of stack up activities and overlap phys ed classes and do different events even at night because they'll be relatively soundproof and relatively separate. Good questions. What else is on your mind?
So I'm curious about faculty lounge space, if Perry and Phoenix are sharing, where it is. Didn't bring my glasses, so I
Yeah,
can't
we have staff prep rooms, we have large staff sort of break rooms in this red. You see red, that's an administrative function. We have an opportunity down here that's kind of closer to this door. So I don't know, I'm not dictating like with room labels that the state gives me. But I think there's way more space than the current you have. So there's all kinds of these student services, there's separate guidance, there's clinic, there's volunteer spaces for parent volunteers, there's conference rooms for IEP meetings. All that stuff exists in this new entrance, but it also is dotted around the school and other places. So I think there's opportunities for them to figure that out, but it's a good point. And I would love for it to happen cross-fertilization if possible.
Well, and then, so there was another question I had. At one point, I don't remember if it was you guys talked about, Phoenix PTA uses a closet down by the gym currently. We have like a lot of stuff in there. And so, like a lot. So, you know, having a space where that can be housed, you know, and
Right.
dedicated, I mean, Perry will have a PTA and cooperation is good, but also
Right.
with fundraising
That would take
assets,
bigger
like-
space if they were both.
Yeah, like there's just that whole like.
That's great stuff, and again, there's some of these sort of small rooms that are left over after we're done with what we're doing, and there's some, you know, new rooms, and there may even be, you know, classrooms that can be dedicated to non-classroom functions because of the numbers that we've created here in terms of the new. So it's very good conversation. It should go continuously and feverishly as we start to figure out how we're going to occupy the space, how we're going to try on the clothes.
Okay, thanks.
How about athletic students?
All going to stay. There's no track here, and I understand that we're close enough to Kilbourne that's where those kids go for track activity. But there's more green space here and more ball fields here than any other site in the district
Do they
because
have a
of the park.
football team, for example, or basketball?
I believe the 8th graders will go to their high schools for those
Mike, I
activities.
think it's McCord.
Oh, is that it? You want to answer that?
Repeat the question for me so I understand exactly.
Football activities here without.
Yeah, so we plan to continue to combine sports between Worthingway and Kilbourne Middle School and McCord and Perry. So what we have done is our cut sports run their own sports. So Perry would run their own basketball teams, boys and girls, volleyball teams, boys and girls. I think those are the only cut sports at middle school. And then our non-cut sports, your football, your lacrosse, your gymnastics,
Track and things like
track,
that.
cross country, we've combined those. And that's really worked well for our kids. So we plan to continue.
It hasn't for the football teams, but
Well, they haven't, right. Imagine if they were separate.
Yeah. Don't even think about it, big Sam.
Yeah, I'll finish with that phasing. So it's a lot like Worthingway. It's, like I said, it's a little simpler.
We got a lot less kids to move.
Correct. So very similar strategy. And this is all the phases on one slide. But the first phase is build this new stuff. And this new stuff then becomes Phoenix for a year while we completely redo their space. So that's really first. And then these other phases I'll show you individually. So we know that we have to build the Perry addition. We need it. We don't have to rush to build the front addition because we don't need it until we're ready to do the inside, tear out. So this will be what we call phase 1B. We may not start it at the exact same date as this, but we can start it whenever we want because again, we're going to stay outside the building footprint. If we start this early, we only have to do is we have to think about temporary access to the front of the school. We think through the media center is one opportunity. We also might create an isolated hallway from this side of the building that becomes a temporary entrance. Here's the diagram. So we might create a Phoenix entrance over here that we would wall off from the Worthington Academy space, and we'd get these classrooms in that space for temporary use. That's if the construction operations in the front prohibit us from going out and finding a place to do that. That would be our preference, and that might work out just fine.
You should October of this year.
Yeah,
How
soon.
soon?
We have site packages out on the street. They're going to start pushing dirt and thinking about the footings and the foundations this fall. By the end of the year, there'll be new work taking place, not just grading and site work.
Should hopefully be early December. We'll start.
These gray areas might just be overnight connections to electric and services because we would need to connect back to the main utility rooms. The next phase, we would get into 2 summers. Using both summers, we would get into these spaces. Obviously, the most important ones are the things that we are going to continue to need, like the music room, the gym, those kinds of things. But this phase really will start when we're able to move kids into this building, and we'll have most of the red area available to us to make it all new construction.
So you're saying you're gonna move the Phoenix kids into?
We will move the Phoenix kids into the new Perry space for 1 year while we do this wave through the interior of the building. And then our last thing will be just, again, both summers, we have some life safety work to do in the 2 academy spaces, and we have some life safety work to do in the space we don't want to give up during the school year, which is the gyms, the locker rooms, the music rooms, that space there. But it's rather simple in that there's plenty of Phoenix space to accommodate the Perry kids, or I'm sorry, plenty of Perry kids, Perry space to operate with the Phoenix kids for a year.
So the Phoenix students really want to be there from probably January to the end of the year.
Okay, so maybe a
To like
half a
May.
year.
Yeah, so it's a half a year they'll be in that new space until we get the rest of it done.
And they'll all be done in the summer of 2021.
21. All 4 schools, by the way. These obviously, Worthingway and Perry are the bigger projects, so they're the bigger challenge, but they all will be done. And again, no day of the school year will we not be having school here because of construction. The idea is that that all happens simultaneously and cooperatively.
And the contingency plan?
I guess there always needs to be some way to adapt. I don't know. This one might be the place where we could swing kids if we had some emergency somewhere else, because we have so much space here. But I don't hope that doesn't happen. I hope we stay on each of our sites.
So we've had quite a few conversations with the city officials, the fire department. So as construction's happening around the building, you see some of the red lines, and we might talk a little bit about it, but there are going to have to be some designated areas in the construction zone that's going to have protection to get emergency if we have to get students out of the building. So we work with the fire department, the city officials, and the construction manager. We've talked about how those need to take place, because our number 1 concern is the safety of the staff and the students and anybody occupying this building during construction. Happens all the time. You know, we're doing it at Canal Winchester with a bunch of additions. You just have to manage it and make sure we get life safety as our number 1 priority.
Other questions you have? Maybe not for me, maybe for the district leadership.
Understandable. That's good.
Good.
As a Phoenix parent, I guess my question is one of the teachers talk about the disruption with a move mid-semester like that, or mid-year?
The programming is not going to change. They feel pretty good about the timing that we have in place of when we'll be moving students from one wing to the other wing, and that we'll be able to maintain the same education that's going on right now. It'll just be in new classrooms for 6 months and then back in other new classrooms.
About 9 to 7 this year, so I should not go back to the new Phoenix. But, so even like the concept of the family room, you know, that's going to be achievable over in the Perry space.
So I sat down with the architects and just looked at the map of making sure everything that we have right now, we would be able to run out of the Perry wing. And we actually have extra space in being able to do that. So we'll be able to keep everything that we've got going on right now during that time over on the Perry side.
And one of the things that will happen too is for the second half of that year, we will not have the kitchen. So dining's going to have to happen in that addition. The food's got to be brought in, or somehow that's got to be addressed as well. Because to modify that kitchen student dining space, we're going to have to take it offline. And that'll happen the second half of the year.
One semester, and we'll
Pizza
satisfy
every day. Domino's every day?
They'd be happy.
I was saying, I know she would be, so.
Yeah, I think to answer your question also different ways, I think, we get sensitive to how our staff feel good about this, they're the ones that are in front of the kids, and it's how the kids feel about it. And anytime we start talking about these types of changes that are going to happen, I'll be honest with you, our Phoenix staff has been tremendous. They look at us confidently and say, we got this, and we got this, we'll be fine. That ability for agility and just kind of go with the flow. Dr. Bowers kind of teed that up with kind of the change process at the beginning of the school year, and I think that's really had an impact on our our staff. So I think that that's going to also then, again, things are going to come up where changes are going to happen on the fly, but how we respond to that is going to be important. I've been surprised and affirmed, I guess I shouldn't say surprised, or affirmed by how awesome our staff is and just how they're treating us and getting ready for it.
Most of them remember being here with 2 schools, and they want to go back to that. I thought they thought, we had it so good in the last few years because we've had this place to ourselves. They were really looking forward to the collaboration again.